Welcome back. Edgar Thompson, Orlando Sentinel, who is, quote, riding his ass off, which he always does anyway, but now he has to do it. That's what he said when I talked to him. So we'll keep it tight so we can get back to it. Edgar, when I initially had you on, I just wanted to talk about, Cormani McClain being kind of a walk-on and then what that means and how they roped him in, and then Elijah Badger and the schedule and all these things going on around the Gators. And then, of course, this morning, the Jaden Rashada news dropped. How bad of news is this for Billy Napier in particular?
Thanks for having me, first of all, guys. This is a story that never ends. And we keep thinking it's going to. Recently, Charlie Baker, the president of NCAA, put a pause, at least, if didn't put the kibosh, essentially, on NCAA investigations surrounding NIL, because Florida agreed to a deal of $13.85 million, turns out, with Jaden Rashada, California high school quarterback, in November of 2022. So we're going back a while now. And that convinced Rashada. We're talking about the number 7 quarterback in that class, by the way. We're not talking about Gators just signed the number 1 quarterback recruit out of the Houston area, north of Houston, Willis, Texas, DJ Lagway. He didn't get a $13.85 million deal. So I'm not sure what even happened, why suddenly this young man who's maybe the 50th, 60th player was getting that kind of money. But that deal fell through, but it convinced Rashada to flip his commitment from Miami. Then the deal falls through, and this whole mess was created, which ended with Rashada never coming here, going to Arizona State, and then after a year there, going to Georgia. He's at Georgia now, of all places, right? So this lawsuit drops today, guys, and it is suing Billy Napier, Hugh Hathcock, who's a big booster for Florida, who was involved in the original deal, allegedly, and the former NIL director, Marcus Castro Walker. And it's suing them for this money that the Rashada family never received. Now, we're under the impression, or were, that this contract had an out clause and that it was terminated in early December, so we're not sure what legal standing the Rashadas have, but that's very squishy. We're not sure. So you're getting thrown back into the spotlight again after this black eye. You think you survived, and the NCAA investigation was another gut punch you think's going to go away, and no, here's a lawsuit. So it's not good on any level for Billy Napier, who is 11-14 in 2 seasons at Florida, trying to move past all these missteps along the way to get to this point. Seems to have the operation up and running, seems to have the systems in place, the staff in place, a better roster, all these things seem good momentum, it appears, heading into this pivotal off season, and now you get hit in the face with this. So, I'll sum it up for you guys, but I'm sure you have a question rather than me continue to talk, but I do have a summation here at the end of what I think happened.
Okay. Let's get some questions in, Edgar. What part of this, some of this, has been out, this is not the first piece by any means written about Jaden Rashada and this whole ordeal. What stood out to you that was new information or maybe information that you thought was different previously? What jumped out to you, if anything?
Well, I mean, the fact you're trying to sue the Billy Napier and these guys for $10 million.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, and here's what stands out to me is, why didn't you just nip this in the bud? Okay, you promised this young man something at some point. Somebody did associated with your program. Billy Napier didn't per se do it. I don't know that Billy Napier knew what was really going on. In fact, I'm pretty sure he wasn't. And put the kibosh to this thing once it came across his desk, or at least that was my impression. So you read this lawsuit that claims on signing day, December 21st, 2022, Billy told the Rashadas or Rashada's father, Harlan, that they would send him $1 million once he signed. Now, I remember that signing day. We went over there for a 3 o'clock press conference. It didn't start until 5 o'clock. The original handout of that class did not include Jaden Rashada. It's like, here's the class. Where's Jaden Rashada? 2 hours later, Billy shows up. Jaden Rashada, new handout. It's like something happened in that 2 hours and prior to it, I'm sure, and to get the kid to sign. So I don't, it's like it's he said, she said, and it's going to come out in court, I guess. They want a jury trial. I mean, God help us if that happens. It's the last thing I want to deal with. But here's what I think happened, guys. Billy Napier arrived in December of 2021 from Louisiana, Sun Belt Conference school, where he had tremendous success, and 33-5 his last 3 seasons out of 4. That was a school that did not recruit top 100 guys, top 200 guys rarely, and if that, and didn't have a big collective. NIL was just starting, didn't have some big collective, didn't have the resources, didn't have the competition for players you have at Florida. So Billy gets here, and he's got a lot of moving parts to deal with, a roster in disarray, a culture he's going to have to rebuild, all these things facing him, okay? Then the school was not taking NIL, in my opinion. I'm not saying seriously, but wasn't as invested in it in terms of, the operation, the apparatus to deal with it. And plus, the state laws prevent you dealing with these third-party collectives directly, and Florida is very, very strict about compliance. And so this goes back to Jeremy Foley's days. So they weren't talking to these people. So you have people off doing things in this new world, a land without laws, as Billy liked to call it at the time, doing stuff. And it all led to this mess. And then you have an opportunistic father kind of shopping his kid around to the highest bidder. Miami originally was going to give him $9.5 million, which John Ruiz, the co-founder of Life Wallet, who was doing all those deals back then, including with Cormani McClain, who ended up going to Colorado and is now at Florida. You mentioned to open the show. He denies that he offered 9.5, but whatever happened, Florida was determined to get this kid, outbid Miami for him, and here we are, so to speak. So I can't even put all the pieces together. I'm trying to in a story and struggling. I'm struggling even more here. It's just very confusing. If listeners are interested, go read my story here. It'll be, I have one posted, but a more thorough version will be up soon, and see if you can figure it out. There's stories all over about it right now, but it's just more headwinds for a program that already faces tremendous headwinds entering year 3 for Billy.
If none of this happened, they still have the schedule that they have. So he was going to be staring down the barrel of that no matter what. Does this make it, I don't want to say near impossible, but even harder for him to be the quarterback, the coach in 2025?
It's just more balance in the scales against Billy. They come out this year, win 7 or 8 games against this schedule, look pretty good in the losses, don't have the chaos of Arkansas on the sideline costing them that game, the no-show at Utah or Kentucky or Vanderbilt in 2022, those kinds of head-scratching, inexplicable performances, get run off the field by, Georgia for the 3rd time. If they win 6, even 6, and that stuff doesn't happen, certainly 7, 8, you got to think, are you really going to pull the plug on this program? I don't know. This is kind of something that happens. Who knows what's being said behind the scenes? It might be a case of we will deal with whatever comes our way. You're our guy until it's proven differently. I don't know what the backing of Billy is. There's certainly, it seems to be pretty strong. Scott Strickland sat on with me last year at a basketball game and said the hot seat's not even a reality in his mind, but, Scott himself could be on it. So you have a new school president, Ben Sass, Nebraska, former Nebraska senator, who's been making lots of changes here, some controversial, some very prescient. I mean, he's got an AI, institute in place with NVIDIA's name on it. One of the three co-founders was a UF graduate. He has all kinds of new colleges popping up, He's pushing more liberal arts than what's going on a lot of campuses. His stance against, protests has been very strong and drawn national headlines. Ben Sass is a visionary and has a way of doing things. And I don't know if the way the athletic department is being run fits that paradigm, but certainly these kinds of things don't help Billy's case.
Edgar, when it comes to Cormani McClain, what's been the response to that addition? How do you view that in terms of how he fits into what Florida already has and what they expect of him? And obviously unique the way coaches are playing around with roster these days to have a star player like that not be on scholarship, at least initially.
Yeah, Cormani McClain, as I mentioned earlier, was a big focal point of Billy Napier in 2022. He committed for 2023, he committed to Miami over Florida and Alabama. Then he flipped and went and joined Coach Prime out there in Boulder, Colorado. Didn't work out there, played only 6 games, 13 tackles, I think 2 pass breakups. Didn't go as expected and entered the portal. And he's coming to Florida. He's a Lakeland kid. Lakeland produced was a big part of one of the best classes this school ever had back in 2007, when both the Pouncey twins, Chris Rainey, Ahmad Black, among others, came to the University of Florida and helped the team win another national championship in 2008. So a lot of Lakeland ties. Ventrell Miller played there, among others. So he seemed destined to come to Florida, so he's getting a second chance at it. As you mentioned, he's a preferred walk-on, but in NIL, you can just give the kid $50,000, and he can cover all his costs and everything. It isn't like it's really even a thing anymore. So you can have guys who are walk-ons who are effectively on scholarship, but he's going to have to earn snaps. You have a fourth-year starter, Jason Marshall. You have Devin Moore, seemingly healthy, a junior with a tremendous length and skill at 6'3", 198 pounds. Short tackler, a lot of speed. You have Jakeem Jackson, who was a top recruit in last year's class. I played a good bit last year. You got Jaden Thompson, who was another big recruit. They flipped from Ohio State a year ago. To Kwesi Bridges is a kid who started 17 games at Oregon, who transferred in this year. He's 6'3", 190-something himself, a lot of length. So it isn't like Cormani McClain, who's 6'2", $165, who needs some work in the weight room, is just going to walk in and start playing. Now, the kid did have, according to On3 Sports, I couldn't really track down the totals, but according to them, they had 30 interceptions in high school. I certainly saw he had 17 his last 3 seasons at the very least. He's a ball hawk. He's a skilled kid. I mean, he was a 5-star for a reason. But, yeah, I mean, it's a good get. But, again, Billy 2 years ago, there was some I'm not going to say I shouldn't say naivete, but learning curve, let's say, for him. He seems to be learning how to work the system a little bit because everyone's doing it. And some guys won't. I mean, we're hearing Dabo Swinney wanting to take transfers. Billy's now doing the preferred walk-on thing and to get a really top guy like Cormani McClain to come home.
Well, Edgar, thank you so much for hopping on. I know that you're up to your eyes in it for sure. And you're again haven't figured it out yet, and who knows who will. But thanks for hopping on, and we'll talk to you again after the storm passes.
Yeah. Well, I'll hopefully have my thoughts a little less disjointed. Last time the phone rang, I'm like, oh man, I got to do this interview, and I'm trying to piece it together on my screen here. So. thanks for having me. Appreciate your interest as always, guys.
All right. Thanks, Edgar. Edgar Thompson at Orlando Sentinel. Check out his column.